Can you guys hear it?
No. And I don't see it on the Facebook page.
All right, good evening, everyone. How are you? I am Dr. Fairby, the founder of Fairby Scholastics, and today we have with us 3 leaders, and we want to talk to you all about leading in the new normal. First, we have Ms. Janine Perry Campbell, who is a newly appointed principal at an elementary school in an urban school district. We have Ms. Crystal Pope, who is a assistant principal at an elementary school. And we have Dr. Nicole Roundtree, who is a human resources specialist. So thank you, ladies, for joining us. I am glad that you all decided to sit in, and hopefully we can provide each individual with some information on how to lead in this new normal. And so those of you who are in the room, we appreciate you being here. Those of you who are watching us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, drmimi.org, welcome to all of you. We will be monitoring our Facebook page and Twitter pages. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them, and we will try to get to them. If we don't, just go to drmimi.org and fill out the form and leave us your comments and questions there. So ladies, are you ready to begin?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, I am. Well, we are.
Okay, so I just want to let everyone know that the purpose of tonight, we will identify ways to be an effective leader during these unprecedented times. Upon completion, you should hopefully have some resources and some little nuggets to put in your toolbox to help you move into this new normal more effectively. And let me just disclose, if you are not a current leader, you are more than welcome to still be here because it does not matter what your role is, you will learn something that will help you in your current positions. So as we move on, we're going to start. I'm going to have a few questions that I will ask, and ladies, feel free to join in wherever you feel the need to join in. And the first question is leadership traits. We know that each of us have a different leadership style, and you have different leadership traits. During this time, what do you think the most effective leadership trait is for an individual to have? And those of you who are on the screen with us, if you could turn your cameras off, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
I guess I'll start. Dr. Farabee, is that okay?
That is fine.
All right. Really excited to be here. I think that's an amazing question that you just asked. Like you said, these are unprecedented times. And I think for me, I think compassion, I've always felt that compassion, whether we're dealing with COVID or if it's just, normal times, compassion is very important when you are a leader. But not only compassion, I think empathy is extremely important, especially during these times, because people are in, different situations. We have co-workers and employees who potentially could be on the verge of losing their homes, losing their cars, having issues with potentially babysitting and having to go back to work. So the two characteristics, like I said, compassion and empathy, you have to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes in order to be able to really communicate with them in a way that's going to be meaningful for both parties.
To piggyback.
Okay, and
Oh, go ahead, Janine.
no, go ahead. Okay, I was gonna say you go ahead.
Okay, to piggyback on what Dr. Roundtree said, I think encouragement. So in these times, everyone needs encouragement, whether it's your employees, whether it's your colleagues. So I think that's one of the things as a leader currently, we really have to encourage. And sometimes we have to encourage ourselves every day because things are changing and we're dealing with the unknown. So that's one of the things that I thought about.
And sorry for my screen right now, you guys, we're flexible. And so with that being said, my two nuggets would be flexibility and collaboration. This is a time where every day is an unknown, almost every moment, every hour. Things are constantly changing. If you live in the Commonwealth of Virginia, our governor just made an announcement today that only pertain to the Hampton Roads area. So as a leader in the new normal, you have to be flexible. You have to think outside of the box. That requires flexibility. And I think now more than ever, it's time to collaborate. You can't do anything in isolation because it really takes different points of views, perspectives, and skill sets to navigate the new virtual world in leadership.
You all are right. You have to be a real good leader at this point in time. And like you said, the governor and governors of many states have a lot that is going on. So they are, it's just a lot being a leader during these unprecedented times. So let's see, within the last year, some of you have mobilized to jobs that we mentioned earlier, to do leadership roles. working out some of the innovative ways that you are building relationships with your staff. So can you tell us how you're building relationships with your staff?
Well, I'm a newly promoted principal. And so I came from secondary and now I'm in elementary. So I'm in a whole new world. And one way that I've developed relationships with my staff is by open communications. I met all of my teachers via Zoom, staff members as well as custodians, even little things such as bringing donuts in the morning or buying lunch on certain days and just talk. My daughter came up to school one day with her mask on, of course, just to meet everybody, just showing them that I'm a person and I have a family and I'm navigating new waters as they are as well. So just letting them know that I'm human, I'm a person, I'm eager, I'm excited about working with them. I think that has been one way for me to be a newly minted principal in a new environment to develop relationships with my colleagues.
One thing that I've been doing is just being available. So I'm always available to my teachers. They have my cell number, they text me, they call the school. I'm available by email if they want to Zoom. So I think that's helped me build those relationships in this new normal, is just by being available. And, if I need to reach out to them, I talked to a teacher today and, I announced myself and she said, I know your voice, Miss Pope. So that made me feel really, really good that they're responding to me and I'm responding to them. And I'm there, not just for my teachers, I'm there for the parents as well, because they're having some, different difficulties as well.
Okay. Dr. Roundtree, did you want to input anything?
Yeah, just coming from a different perspective with me being in human resources, building relationships with continuing to build relationships with my new principals and new assistant principals virtually. And that's different for me actually, because I'm such a hands-on, touchy-feely person. So it's been different, but even bringing in new employees, building relationships with them, we're used to having a face-to-face onboarding, and we really get to know those people that we bring into the division. We're some of the first people that they see before they actually go into the buildings. So it's been difficult finding creative ways to continue to, break the ice, put humor in these virtual, our virtual onboardings and our virtual interviews. So, building relationships virtually is a task, but we're leading in the new normal. It's something that we just have to do and have to get used to and find creative ways to continue to do it.
That is very true. So let me ask this, as we're finding all these new creative ways, how are you getting with those interpersonal relationships? Because, as most people know, we have introverts, we have extroverts, and I guess I consider myself very much an introvert. So this is like the perfect time for me. I get to be in my own space. I don't have to be, around a lot of people. I get to do my job. I get to answer emails when I want to answer them and not be right on demand. And then those of you who are extroverts, which I know Ms. Perry Campbell and Dr. Roundtree, I think you fall into that. How are you handling that when, you're used to those hugs and those kisses and all those things? So how do you deal with that as a leader? Because I'm quite sure some of our leaders are dealing with, I can't reach my people the way I want to reach them.
Perry Campbell, you want to go first?
Okay. It has been difficult. Whenever we recently had a 6th grade promotion ceremony where the staff had to come back with social distance masks, I was so excited to see people. And we had to just elbow hug because we knew we couldn't touch. So it has been extremely difficult, especially in a new space. But what it has allowed me to do is to get to know people individually and collectively, plan for the future. I've been able to do more collaboration, I think, in this time For my introverted colleagues, I think this is your season. If you don't like to be around a lot of people, you can be on the Zoom call. You can have notes in front of you. No one would ever know. You're in your own safe space. You don't have to worry about. Look, I know a lot of us who do Zooms now. We're dressed up from the waist up, so you can be so comfortable now. Fears that you may have had about speaking in groups or always having to be on the spot. Now you can methodically think out things that you may need to do. So I honestly think this new virtual world is everything for an introverted person. It just gives you a time to shine, and your shyness is actually vital because most introverts are technical minded people. And so now you can use the way your analytical brain works to problem solve and to be able to pinpoint issues of concern and attack those individually and one on one rather than in big group settings.
And I'm going to piggyback on Ms. Perry Campbell. Being an extrovert myself, it has been very difficult. Those people who know me, you know that I am a blue person. Those of you all who have taken the colors assessment, personality assessment, I'm very blue. So I believe in those relationships. I believe in that touchy-feely hug. So you have to watch out for us extroverted people too, because we are going through. Check on your extroverts, because virtual for me has all virtual has been difficult for me because I'm a collaborator. I want to be around my peers and my co-workers. It's hard for me not to go next door in my team member's office and sit and have a conversation with her versus having to call her on the telephone just to say something. So, but I also understand, and I say this a lot, this leading in a new normal is a time for us to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because each of us are out of our elements in some way or another. So in order for us to continue to be effective leaders, we have to remember that we just have to get comfortable being uncomfortable and keep the process moving so that we can, just continue to make things happen.
Okay. Thank you. And let me just put out there, some of you maybe, you might have friends that are trying to get us on Facebook. Something is going on with the connection to Facebook. So we're not running live on Facebook, but we are live on YouTube and we are live on Twitter. And we are also live on my webpage, which is drmimi.org /blog. You can look at the blog page at the bottom, you'll get it live. So if you have anyone that's texting or calling and saying they cannot get the Facebook page, it is having a little bit of technical difficulties, and we're in a storm, so we may have some technical difficulties here as well. So talking about all of that and knowing that you're using all this technology and things, what are the best ways or the things to do with technology? I know pretty much a lot of us are probably zoomed out. We get Zoom. Every time you turn around, you get in a Zoom meeting. I don't think I'm not that techno savvy person. So every time you turn around is, can you get it on Zoom? Can you? And I was up 4 o'clock at night trying to get this done so that we could be on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and my webpage, trying to be all high and mighty, I guess. But so how do you deal with that when you have people that are, what are some etiquettes or things as a leader to think about when you are trying to dictate or limit the amount of technology that you're constantly using?
I would say for your technology, keep in mind when you're doing meetings, your staff meetings, or if you have teachers that are doing Zoom lessons, they should not go more than an hour, even 15 minutes. Sometimes it needs to be chunked. If you're doing a meeting, chunk your meeting where you can move into a small group, or you have people participating using annotations, taking polls, but just kind of engage in the audience. So engage in the discussions. The breakout rooms are awesome. A lot of teachers love participate, and even in a meeting, you can do like a grade level. Let's break out by grade level. And I think as a leader, you should model what you want your staff to do or your teachers to do. So if you as a leader, you have your staff on a Zoom meeting for 2 hours, you can't go and say, as when you're teaching, don't have the kids on the computer X amount of time. So you should model as a leader those different things that you want your staff or your teachers to do. So definitely keep those meetings kind of brief, or those interactions, those training. If it's an hour training, chunk it. It can be 15 minutes, let's go over this, another 10 minutes, let's have a discussion. Use your chat feature. And other tools, they have some really good tools like Padlet, where you can do some polls, Slido, you can take some surveys. So research some of those different apps and utilize that as well.
Okay, and one before Ms. Campbell, you one of the things I would say is, so everyone's not into education. Everyone on this reviewing is not an educator. So if you're not an educator and you're thinking about how you're doing your meetings, I know you like to you want to be everywhere. So when you have your team and you're doing your whole team, maybe you can break out in the breakout rooms and have little smaller groups, and then you pop into those groups. That way you see what's going on. And I think that might help those leaders who like to be in control, because there's a lot of leaders that always want to be in control of what's going on. So I know that at this time, you're probably having a hard time too. And, and I understand that, because as a leader, we have to know that everything falls on us. At the end of the day, this is on you. If this flops, the leader is the one that it comes to. So just remember that you still have to monitor it, but you want to just set up some guidelines for what goes on and how it goes on in the private sector or the government sector.
Well, Dr. Mimi must have been looking in my brain, because that's what I was about to say. I think just as you would do face to face, you definitely have to have collaborative norms for your virtual meetings. Making sure people actually show their faces, not avatars or my name, as you can see on your screen if you're in Zoom, because I'm on two devices, but showing your face so you can be actively engaged. And doing that, knowing what your background looks like. If you know your house may not be in tip top condition, or your office space, then look, you can have a Zoom background. You can be in Bora Bora if you choose. It's so creative now. So I think that's important. And to also look the part. I recently did an interview via Zoom, and the person that interviewed was truly unprepared. It was an early interview, and the person looked like they had just rolled out of the bed. So Zoom does not give you an excuse if you do Google Hangouts or Skype. You're still professional. So I think as Dr. Mimi said about, we model as leaders what we expect from people that we lead. You too should come into your meetings looking the part, looking professional, speaking professional. I'm a joker, so I may crack a little joke just to kind of ease the room, because we are in unprecedented times and people are very anxious, but still they know when we're in the meeting, it's about business. And we're here for a reason. We have a goal to accomplish, and we're going to do that professionally. And I'm going to always try my best to model professionalism for my staff, because that's what I want them to exude.
Yeah, good. All right, so Miss Perry Campbell, you just went into, you had an interview and what was going on. So how are we handling interviews right now? Because I know you don't, I thought I had some good experience with human resources. I thought I worked at civilian personnel at Fort Meade in my younger days. So I thought I was, a little bit on top of things. But how do there's a lot of people, unemployment rates are high, and people are looking for jobs. So how is the interviewing going at this point in time and using Zoom?
Well, I love the interviewing because I think it allows the interviewee to be more comfortable. Again, as we talked about introverts in this time, people on interviews are comfortable because you're in your own space. And so That's one thing to kind of ease nerves. You're basically talking to your computer. You're able to give feedback. I know for me, my interviews have been more relaxed, not as formal as they would have been had we been face to face. Now, I do know one thing, and anyone going on an interview or those of you who will interview, when we take notes, I use Google Docs, and so I split my screen and I'm typing on one side. So I know that can be kind of nerve wracking just to have that dead space. Face to face, you can actually see someone writing, but when you're on a virtual call, you literally just see looking like this and you're just thinking, oh my, what is going on? So just to reiterate, I'm jotting down notes. We're with you. Be transparent and talk your interviewee through. But as you said, Dr. Fairby, people are really looking for jobs. Just because we are going through a pandemic, please don't think that jobs are not available, because jobs are available. This may be the time to switch careers, because now we have new needs in the workplace, and the workplace looks totally different from where it looked in January, and it's going to continue to evolve as we continue to press onward through the coronavirus pandemic and what's to come in the future. So, for those of you who will be interviewing, for those of you going on interviews, don't be nervous about the virtual experience. If anything, it just gives you a way to relax a little bit. And people are so lenient, more lenient now than they may have been face to face, because we're all navigating the new normal. So this is a great time to start looking at career opportunities, career changes as we progress throughout this pandemic.
All right. Dr. Roundtree, how are you all vetting? You're in human resources and you're that specialist. So how are you vetting individuals and making sure that they can do, that they're the best individuals for us to hire, and that they meet the skills, knowledge, and abilities?
Well, of course, it's all virtual, so we're going by their resumes, we're looking at their applications, we're reviewing their references, and we are pre-screening all of our new hires. So we pre-screen them via interview, and after we have interviewed them based on how they did, how well interview, then we will recommend those individuals to our principals so that they will have an opportunity to watch the interviews that we have done, and make a decision based on that. As a former teacher, former assistant principal, former science program specialist, I think I am at a great advantage in human resources because I have been in all of those roles. So when I am pre-screening via our interviews, there are certain things that I'm listening for from our candidates, and that kind of helps me to vet them as well. But after we go through our process, then the second step would be for our administrators to also have a say in whether or not that person is a good fit for their team, their school.
Okay. Now, as we're looking at this time and we're interviewing and we're trying to hire people, how do we balance or measure that skill and will to know, truly if people, because, you're vetting their applications and they have all these skills and they're bringing them to the table, but then when they get into the job, they don't perform as well as that piece of paper may have said they were going to do. So how is the pandemic impacting our ability to really choose the right individuals for these jobs?
I think that even if we don't choose the right individual, we can still, as leaders, build capacity and work on building them and preparing them. So sometimes we might feel like they might not be the exact fit, but a good leader can encourage, can build, work alongside, come right alongside and kind of show them and guide them to get them to do what we need them to do. I just think that's another leadership trait. So even if they aren't right there, Because a lot of times, somebody could come in and we're like, oh, they look really, really good. And, on the resume, the interview, everything was wonderful. And then they come in and they need a lot of support. So that goes back to, that whole leadership piece in this new normal. We have to be prepared to build that capacity.
And what are some ways that you are building capacity? Because you're saying that as a leader, we have to build capacity, but I'm just gonna be the devil's advocate. Sometimes you don't have a lot of time. So to be putting a lot of time into someone who does not really have the skill or the will, sometimes becomes a little frustrating. So, you're going to build the capacity, but how are you going to build the capacity? Because during this time as a leader, we are also stressed. We may not show it because our capacity says that we have to be strong. We have to put on that front, you never let them see you sweat. So how do you build individuals' capacities during this time?
Well, I think in the initial hiring process, you have to be very transparent. No more sugarcoating during an interview. And if it means collaborating with your human resource department to revise questions should be asked that specifically pertain to your institution or your place of business. If you work in the banking setting, and I'm just making this up, and you work from home, you really should ask questions. How do you use virtual meetings? Are you able to work from home? Do you have internet connection? It may seem mundane to ask those questions, but even hearing the answers from those can tell you whether or not the person may have the skill for what you need to do. And I think, as Ms. Pope said, building capacity truly is vital. But in that instance, we have to have people who we can build. We're moving into a very technologically advanced world where things change daily. So as you interview someone, you need to hear that someone is a fast learner. They're quick. They take the initiative. Initiative is everything right now, because if I need you to know how to work Google Suite and you wait for someone to hold your hand, you may get lost in the mix. But I need someone to be honest. Hey, I'm just learning how to do Google Docs. I get on YouTube. I'm trying to train myself. If you can tell me what I'm expected to do, I will go on and learn myself. And of course, we provide support. But because of the world that we live in now, being self-motivated, taking the initiative, being a fast learner, those are critical characteristics that leaders are looking for to build their staff, to build collegial environment so that everyone can progress towards success.
Okay, all right. And when you're building capacity, during this time, leaders have to do a lot. We've got to have physical capacity. So leaders must be capable physically and mentally to lead during challenging circumstances. So if you as a leader aren't up for that, then your organization is not going to function, because you have to be strong. You have to have that emotional capacity. Emotional regulation is the most important capacity building element. Leaders who remain composed under challenging circumstances get more out of their people. So as I stated earlier, you have to compose. You can't let them see you sweat. You have to intellectual capacity. And I think that is probably the biggest piece of capacity right now. You have to educate yourself as well as educating others. Because if you don't have the knowledge, look at Zoom, look at all these technology platforms that we're using. You have to know how to use them, and you have to know how to use them effectively to get your people to use them and to have your organization function. I don't know how many people have been watching the news lately, but a lot of the news now has been saying that organizations' production is low. But so you're not getting that production that you need to have. So you have to go in as a leader and build up that capacity. And we have a statement in here from, it says from Rena, and she says it is also important to have clearly defined expectations and process in place, more so now than ever. People are extremely anxious, not knowing. And that goes back to where I think someone says you have to be transparent. As a leader in this point in time, you have to be transparent. You have to be given facts. Not talking about anybody out there in the political world, but we don't always get the facts. We get what they want us to have. But to have your organization run effectively, you need to give facts. You need to be transparent. If you know tomorrow y'all going to be doing cuts, then let people know. You know, don't hold back, because when you do things like that, that anxiety is going to build up and then the performance is going to decrease. So we talked about building capacity. So now let's touch on another thing that's going on in the world. You know, we've got a lot of movements that are going on right now. You have the Black Lives, you've got immigration. There's a lot of things going on. So how would individuals bring that into their organization as we get together, or as we're doing? We have to address these matters. So what advice do you have for leaders who, you know, may not want to touch those areas right now for fear of what may come of it?
Now this question, you know, I love. My dissertation deals with critical race. And so I'm all for Black Lives Matter. And I think, you know, depending on your organization, no matter what it may be, these issues are very important. They're going to really determine the type of employees, the image of your business. If you are a business that is inclusive of others, now you need to be cognizant of those that you invite into your organization. That means sometimes, you know, young people call it trolling, but actually going on applicant social media, going on your staff member's social media page to see how they're really thinking. You know, if we pride ourselves in being an organization that's inclusive to all, and then you go on someone's Facebook and they have xenophobic or homophobic messages and different things like that, those are conversations that change. And we've seen on social media and in the news how people are losing jobs because they bring their personal opinions and connect it to their work organizations. The work organizations don't want to have anything to do with those negative characteristics that people may have. So that's one thing. And then you have to have social consciousness. You have to know your biases. You have to be willing to accept your unconscious bias. If you are an organization that believes in racial diversity, but your board of directors, your upper leadership all look the same way, same race, same gender, then you aren't demonstrating the diversity that you say that you do. So I think it's taking a look at our organizations. Who are the change agents? Who are the decision makers? When we make decisions, who are the people that we're asking? Are these the people that we serve, or are we looking in the ivory tower and having those people determine the outcome for those who may not be in the same social, economic, racial background? So being more cognizant of being inclusive, being watching the news, for doing your own research, taking the initiative, because this is the way, and we can't, we have to attack the elephant in the room. And you know, the saying says one bite at a time. Having uncomfortable conversations. Dr. Roundtree, I love, she says, we have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think that's right, Dr. Roundtree. And I mean, we need to put on a t-shirt because that is really where we are. And that's where change is going to occur. So you have to be uncomfortable. As the late John Lewis said, we have to get in some good trouble right now, in your beliefs, and making sure everyone feels involved, included, and just doing what's right. I think it's going to be very vital as leaders progress on.
Any other comments to that?
That was well said. I can't even add anything to that, Miss Perry Campbell. You hit the nail on the head. I'm going to put myself back on mute.
I concur.
And she is correct. You've got to, you know, you got to have those uncomfortable conversations. And I think, Perry Campbell, you always say you got to control, you can only control the controllables or something
Yes,
of that nature.
you only can control your controllables.
That's
and
right.
When Rena made the comment about being transparent and clearly stating expectations, I think she was right on with that comment, because we're in a world that things are so ever changing. Crystal mentioned being empathetic to people. You know what, you guys, we're in a world where you can't take stuff personal. There's a personal mentor I have, and I have to give her credit. Her name is Miss Ardonia Howard. She teaches in Chesapeake Public Schools, and she's been a great mentor to me. She taught me something, and it's with a Q-tip. And she's, I mean, like a regular Q-tip, just a clean Q-tip. And she says Q-tip stands for quit taking it personal. And as we navigate in our new normal, sometimes you have to take personal out of it because you have to move your organization. And so you may be put in situations that may be uncomfortable, but we have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. You may be put in situations that you can't control. So we only can control the controllable. But at the end of the day, you can't take it personal. People may say things to you, as Rena said, people are anxious, and sometimes we don't make the best judgment in what we say. Our filters don't exist. The only filters we have now are in our masks. So it may not necessarily be verbally. And so right now, just remember, you can't take things personal. You have to be flexible. You only can control what you can control. And just collectively we'll navigate these waters together.
Very well said, Janine.
Very well said, Mrs. Perry Campbell.
Thank you.
So now we've kind of concluded all of our questions. We've looked in the chat, don't see too many questions up in there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get ready to close. We'd like to thank everyone watching and on this. So what we would say is that leading the new normal requires being intentional about everything. So as a excellent leadership is based on decision making. You have to make hard decisions. You've got, look at our governors everywhere. They're having to make those hard decisions to decide what happens with students, what happens with their cities, what happens with their state. You want to, so you've got to know how you're going to respond and engage with others. Right now, you can't be responding always negatively or things like that nature because that shows your emotion. So as you're focusing on being an excellent leader, you want to first develop a plan. You have to have a plan. You have to know where you're going. That's where Ms. Rena came in and said you want to have processes in. Team shares your dream. If you don't get people around you that feels the same way that you feel or are trying to do the things that you're trying to do, then your organization or your department is not going to be as successful. Being excellent requires being effective. It means you have to be courageous. Sometimes you're going to have those conversations that you may not have normally had with individuals because you were afraid or you were you just didn't know where you wanted to go. So you got to be courageous. So courageous is being willing to think outside the box. You want to be proactive. You want to take chances as long as they are not at the expense of others. You want to be transparent. We've talked about that. Transparency means letting people know. Let people know what's going on. Be honest and open. Have some integrity about yourself because that is a characteristic that once you lose your integrity and people become, they don't trust you, then you aren't going to be a successful leader. Be empathetic. You got to understand. And when I say empathetic, I mean empathetic and not sympathetic. People don't need your sympathy. They need your empathy. So know and understand where people are coming from, where they are professionally. Understand what is going on. Right now, a lot is going on. We don't know who does not have food at home because they come to work every day, but the money may not be like it used to be, or other things are going on because we are going through a pandemic. So be empathetic. Also be compassionate. Care about your people, know what's going on, strive to see those around you thrive. If other people around you are not growing, then you are not a successful leader. And I would just take this time now to just say, like, Miss Perry Campbell, I remember I was working with her. We've known each other since we were in college at Norfolk State University, behold the green and gold. But we also, you know, worked together at a high school. And she was a biology teacher. And whenever I needed things, she would be able to do them for me. Because as I said earlier, this technology is not my baby. So she would get it done. And then, you know, I saw something in her and said, hey, Perry Campbell, you know, you should apply for this. You should do this. And she did this. Even going back to Dr. Roundtree. Dr. Roundtree was sitting around and, well, I think I want to go in human resources, but I don't know. And what's stopping you? So today, what I'm asking you all is, what is stopping you? If you want to move to that next level, how are you going to move to that next level? And that's what we're about right here. We're here to help you move to that next level. You want to be an active listener. You got to have your ear to that ground, and you got to be hearing what is going on. You make adjustments when you hear what is going on. Survey your people. Just because you're the leader does not mean you have the final and ultimate say. Sometimes you have to bow down and you have to do what others want you to do, because if you don't, then your organization, again, will not be successful. Invest in yourself. You know, we go to school, we get these bachelor's degrees, master's degree, doctorate degree. Why not invest in yourself? Get yourself a coach. Get yourself people that are around you and want to know more about, you know, things that you're doing. Get around people that are doing what you want to do. Surround yourself with those type of people. Read books, do all those things. So in the end, I will leave you with, to be a successful leader, you have to first analyze. Don't go into any organization if you're just getting a job or you're thinking, don't go in there and say, oh, I'm gonna change this, I'm gonna do this, or I could do this better. Analyze. When you analyze and you look at things, and you can make decisions that are appropriate for the success of you and the organization. Be all scrambled and have things everywhere. You have to be an organized individual to be a great leader. Initiate, you know, this is the perfect things are going on. Talk to your supervisors, talk to whomever and say, hey, I'd like to do this or I'd like to do that. Initiate new things, think outside of the box, and follow through. Whatever you do, make sure you follow through. Don't start something and don't finish it. We started this thing, I think around March 13th. I think that's when Virginia started closing down and probably everyone else. What did you do from March 13th until August 28th? If you have not revamped yourself and thought about new ways to make yourself better, then you did not use this time the right way. This was a time for everybody to sit down, be quiet, process, reflect, and get yourselves together. So I will leave you all with that. And we again, thank you all for coming. We appreciate all of your support. If you have any questions or concerns, we have our, follow us on Twitter. That was on our other page, but we will post it on Facebook and all those things. So follow us, and if you need any help with anything, please feel free to let us know. You can go to, again, like I said, drmimifarabee.org. Go to Dr. Mimi, fill out the form, let us know how we did, and then we'll have your email address and we can see, or fill in the chat box. You're in the chat box, fill in the chat box, let us know how things went, and we hope you learned something. So if you learned something, then we did our job tonight. So thanks, everyone. We appreciate you and have a great evening. Junior, are you asleep?